Hey guys, welcome to Fully Engaged. This is Christopher Holmes here with Teacher Talks. I'm so excited that you joined me this evening. We have a special guest tonight. We are talking about the crossroads between Christianity and the classroom. We have a young lady on with us tonight I have known for a long time. She is a young go-getter. She is getting after it. She is successful. She is excited. She is motivated. But most of all, the one thing I know about her is that she has a heart for God. So let's welcome our guest for this evening, Miss Elesha Coons. Hey, Elesha,
Hi,
how are you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm great. First, I want to thank you for joining me. I'm so excited to have you on to engage in this conversation. I think it's one that's poignant. I think it's relevant, and I think it's one that many people are going to enjoy. As we talk about Christianity and this whole profession of education, how do those things intertwine? How do they relate? And how do we navigate through those things as people of faith in an effort to also do what's in the best interest of teachers and students, no matter what position you're in? So, tell us a little bit about yourself before we get started, and then we're going to engage in some conversation for about 30 minutes with everybody. If you're on YouTube, feel free to drop something in the comment section. If you're on Facebook, live on Christopher D. Holmes, and that I should be live there. I'm also live on YouTube on Fully Engaged Education. All right. So, Elesha, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, well, I'm Elesha Scott. I am an educator. I love God, but I also love inspiring people and encouraging them to walk in their purpose and to, be aware of their God given identity. Like, who are you? Why are you here? What are your gifts? How can you use them to make a difference? I feel like that's my purpose in life, to encourage people to be on that journey and support them while on that journey. So that's it for me.
All right. So, what I want to do is engage you in some questions about yourself as an educator and also as a person of faith. Okay. I'm hopefully we'll have some people chime in with some questions to follow up what you say, because you're going to do such a great job. They want to know more about how you're doing what you're doing, or they may have a question in general for the both of us. So, first off, what made you become a teacher? What made you get into education?
Um, Hands down, I kind of just naturally had that gift. I love to learn. So my mom would buy us summer bridge books, and I would literally just eat them up, and then also create a classroom for the other kids at my grandma's house. But more so than anything, it was my mom. My mom was pregnant with me in high school, and so when she went to college, I went with her. And so I would be in the back coloring, and I was just in that environment all the time, because as she pursued her master's and her doctorate, I was in the same spaces with her. So whether I knew it or not, I was learning. And I think that's really what contributed to me just deciding that, you know what, I'm a teacher, and that's okay. I'm going to do this to the fullest. So, yeah.
Are you excited you made that decision?
Yes, because I was actually a chemical engineering major, and I didn't want to see my grandma write a check for me to continue to go to school out of state because of some financial aid miscommunication or something. So I decided to come back to Georgia, and I went to UGA, and they didn't have chemical engineering, but they had math education. So I was like, okay, I like math. I like teaching, so I'll be a math teacher. And that was the best decision I ever made. Like the stuff I learned in our courses, the professors, just everything. It was top notch. It was the best experience that I could have ever had. So I'm glad that I switched.
So, next question, and I'm excited you switched too. We're glad to have you
Yes.
in the field. The next question. So, what is something, or what is a quote, or what is a saying that you often have in your head to kind of get you through the day, to keep you motivated, to keep you focused on the work that you have to do?
Well, the first one I would have to say is I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. My mom would write that on all of my school supplies, and my grandma actually would keep a record of all the scriptures that I've learned, throughout my life. And so when I was 1, I knew that scripture. That was on my 1-year-old list or whatever. But more so than that, I've learned to appreciate the scripture, be anxious for nothing, but in everything, by prayer, petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God, and the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your heart and mind in Christ Jesus. I would say those are the scriptures that I hold on to. Mostly scriptures related to peace and purpose. That helps me remember why I'm there. Like, I'm doing this work as unto the Lord. But more than anything, I think the affirmations that I made for my students, and we say that every day before we start class, when I was in the classroom, and we learned them in English and in Spanish. And they basically say, I am enough. I'm committed to being the best version of me that I can be. I am dedicated to making every minute count. I believe I can achieve any goal I set out to accomplish. I will hold myself to high standards. I will never quit. Today will be the best day of my life. And we just go through and say them in Spanish too. Yo soy suficiente. And we just go on and on. But I think it sets the tone for our class environment. So that's what I hang on to.
Thank you. Oh, that's awesome. I would go on and on, but we only have 30 minutes. There's a whole lot to be said. Simply about that first quote, that first verse that you said, I can do all things. And I think right now that is a message for a lot of educators who are experiencing a lot of fear, a lot of trepidation about what they're called to do, and their ability to do it in a safe environment that's going to be in the benefit for them and their students. So let's encourage them by simply saying that again, that you can do all things. And you can do all things despite a pandemic, despite the fear that you have, despite the struggles that you may be dealing with, despite the struggles with virtual learning. You're not familiar with it. You're not familiar with technology, but it doesn't matter what it is, no matter what the barrier, no matter the practice, the policy of the person, you can do all things through Christ. You can do it. And we're believing in you. And so that's why it was so important to do this stream tonight, because people need to hear that. Some people are hopeless, and some feel like they're helpless. And there is hope out there for everybody if you just put your hand in the right hand, if you put your faith in whatever that higher being is that you believe in. It may not be God or Buddha or Muhammad, whatever it is. Reach and lean on that higher being, that higher calling to get you through, and you'll make it. I know that you'll make it. How do you encourage your colleagues when you see your colleagues and they may be down and they're struggling? Somehow you can tell their spirit or their energy is not quite where it needs to be. How do you encourage them? Because you have your own way of encouraging yourself. How do you encourage somebody else who seems to be so discouraged?
I would have to say, basically by being optimistic, like I'm realistic about like what we're facing and how we feel. I think the best way that I try to encourage my neighbor is, okay, how do you feel? Get that out. And then let's filter that through like the Christian principles that we talked about. Like you said, through God who gives me strength. So let's say one of my coworkers feels weak in the moment, be honest about that. I feel empty or whatever. But if we're believers, we believe that through his strength, we can do all things, And also in our weakness, he is strong. And in that moment, maybe it's harder to believe, but even if I think you can just put just a little bit of light in darkness, it gives somebody something to hold on to. So most of the time I just listen. And then other than that, I just kind of give, it depends on the situation. But most times I'm going to try to give an encouraging word that they can hold on to.
So since you've been in education, as a Christian, what has been one of the biggest challenges that you have had to face that have really tested your faith?
I was hoping we would get here real quick because this is a super important thing to me. I really believe that we have this idea that you have to leave your beliefs at the door And our students even feel that way. Like, you know, you can be Christian up until the door of your classroom. You can be whatever you believe until you hit the door of the classroom. And I understand a lot of the reasons why we, you know, stop a lot of things at the door. But beliefs are who we are. And so when you say leave your beliefs at the door, you say leave the individual, you know, their identity, everything that they are, their purpose, the reason why they, you know, their why at the door. And so I think because we have established that type of mindset, we have created a culture where people don't know how to value other people's beliefs, and they also don't know what they believe. So we see a lot of students, I pour this into my kids all the time. Who are you? Why are you here? They say, to learn. I'm like, you know, your purpose is far greater than that. But I asked them, what are your gifts? How can you use them to make a difference? I don't have any gifts. Well, how does a kid make it to high school and not even have an idea as to what their gifts are?
Yeah.
And so, or what their purpose is outside of to learn, you know? And so I think that when we do that, we create gaps in our ability to empower the individual, because the individual didn't show up. The robot did. You get what I'm saying? The person who, the performer did. Because I think sometimes we get so caught up in performance that we get frustrated when a kid doesn't know how to resolve conflict. But we never taught them that, because they don't know what they believe and they don't know how to respect the belief of someone else.
Yeah.
So I feel like instead of looking at our belief systems as an opportunity, and I understand that some people can impose their beliefs on people and it can get really like a sticky situation, you know? Yeah. But for people to not even be able to say that I'm a Christian, that, you know what I'm saying? Or I'm a Muslim, or you should still be able to say that's a piece of who I am. That's what I believe.
I think the problem, one of the things I think we see though, we talk about this inclusive education and this cultural sensitivity for the students. I'm not sure that all teachers feel like they have a voice to be who they are culturally, whether it be race, gender, sexuality, culture, religious, but it doesn't matter. I don't feel like all teachers feel like they have that safe space to just be themselves. So I think when we talk about the climate of the building, it has to be across the whole building, not just for students, but also for staff.
I think some of our traditions, I love traditions, but I also am a creative, so I love, you know, innovation and stuff as well. But what I will say that I think that our inability to evolve sometimes stifles the creativity of our educators. It feels oppressive and almost abusive, because you also feel like you can't show up to the table. So how can you inspire a certain thing into a kid if you feel like when you step in the door, you feel oppressed, you know? And so I think that boils down to creating a culture for the teachers that you want to see within the kids. I would say this often. Like, we say all kids can learn. We go above and beyond to do what we can to support our students so that they can reach, you know, the goals that we have for them, and hopefully the ones that they have for themselves. I think we can do a better job of teaching kids how to outline their goals that align to who they are. I think that's why, like, you know, the CTAE pathways, those things are beneficial because they kind of get to the heart of that. But what I will say is, if we believe all those things about students, and we want teachers to believe that, people have to receive what they're expected to give. Yeah. Or they'll be given from a place they have no idea about. I'll give an example. My mentor teacher one time said, in the middle of a lesson, she said, they asked the question. She said, well, I don't have the answer. She said, I'll have to go look it up. She was like, you know, I don't know everything, but I promise you tomorrow I will have some type of answer. Even if it's not what you expected, I'm going to try my best. That was a relief for me, because I was like, I don't have to know everything to be a teacher, you know? Yeah. That showed me that she put learning, the fact that I'm a learner, over the fact that I'm a teacher. You get what I'm saying? But the best teachers are learners, students of their students, students of the work. So I just feel like if sometimes we are requiring a space and expecting people to comply instead of inspiring, you get what I'm saying? And modeling what we say that we want to see delivered to other people. And I'm not saying it's everybody, but that's one of the things that I've seen.
And I like when you say, and we say this all the time. I'm not sure that people really internalize that when we say we want people at the table, when you invite people to the table, you invite all of them, everything that embodies who they are to the table. And when you bring them to the table, you have to also value who they are, what they bring to the table, those beliefs, those values, but also the passion, because we're all at the table trying to do not just the same work, but the right work. And I think that's sometimes where we may differ because we're all not trying to do the right work the same way, and that kind of create conflicts. And so, as a Christian, there may be a certain way that you want to go about doing certain things, especially in the way that you treat people, how
Mm-hmm.
you engage with people, how people perceive you and receive you.
Mm-hmm.
And if those things don't align to the way you believe, then you may disagree in the way somebody else want to go about doing something. But there's a way to do that, even as a Christian. To how
Yes.
do you disagree with somebody in a Christian fashion, but still get your point across, but also value their opinion and what they bring to the table?
I think it's a matter of consistently checking yourself, because you can have the right motive when you initiate a thing, but your response can be off. You
Yeah,
get what I'm saying?
yeah,
Because it's a consistent exchange. So maybe I started off the right way, but I have to always check myself on the back end.
yeah.
Continuous process. And I
Mhm,
think sometimes, as Christians, we can be like, well, what we did was the right way. We had the right motive. You can have that, but since it's
mhm,
it's an ongoing, it's a living, breathing organism,
mhm, mhm.
so you have to respond accordingly. You have to be, I say, you have to be like prepared. Like, that's why I have my scriptures. I have to do devotion in the morning for me to last, because if not, I will misrepresent myself and
Yeah,
misrepresent God.
most
So
definitely.
I look at it as my best witness is the way that I live my life.
Hmm.
I can't do that if I don't have any tools to pull on.
Yeah,
Because somebody comes at me the wrong way. Let's say I come in love, but they come at me with hate. So now I'm like, oh, we gonna hate today? Okay, let's hate. You know what I'm saying? But that would be Elisha's toolbox.
right.
But if I got God's word hidden in my heart, written on the tablet of my heart, I'm ready. So I would respond different, because I remember he said, don't come back with sarcasm. What I'm
Hmm.
expecting you to do is, it's no exception. Overcome evil with good. All
Right.
types of stuff. Scripture I
Yeah,
just read today, I don't know about heart, but those are the things I have to hold on to.
yeah.
That I'm overcoming evil with good. Yeah, I may have lost the battle, but if it's gonna help us win the war in God,
Hmm.
I'm not here for any of them, or even for myself. I
Yeah,
am here for God, and I think that one of the other things I want to mention is it's so easy to get empty as a teacher, because you're giving of yourself all of the time. And so I think that it's so important, that we Christians are grounded in God, so that we never run dry. We always have a source we can pull from. Because you can have fire lessons all day, but those fire lessons will turn into ashes at the end of the day. You got nothing left.
right.
You can use that same lesson tomorrow. So I think it's so important that we remember that the only way we can perform at a high level, and sometimes we can get caught up in stagnant or whatever, but the only way we can, I'm not even going to say perform, but give out of purpose, instead of performance,
Yeah,
is be grounded in God. So that's
yeah.
what I wanted to add too.
And it's so many things I want to go into what you said. Um, so one of the questions I was going to ask you is, how do you overcome some of the challenges that you face as a Christian in the classroom or in education? But I think you answered it beautifully in simply saying that in order to overcome those challenges, one, you got to remember who you are. You got to remember whose you are, and you have to know when to tap into the source, to
Mm-hmm.
not tap into who you are, but to tap into who you have been called to be and into the work that you have been called to do. Because if you do it your way, the way Elesha would do it, or the way that Chris Holmes would do it, it will fail. It won't work out right. And the other thing you said is, even when you have a good motive, you have to ensure you have the right message. And that message may not always be with your words. It can be with your actions and the way people receive what you're saying. If the tone isn't right, it's not gonna work in your favor.
And I
It's not,
think what we have learned to do sometimes as Christian is to speak the language, but not live the life. I think our kids are so powerful in this regard. There's so many ways that they're powerful, but one of the things that they've taught me is if I tell them that these are my rules, the best way I can teach them how to abide by them is for me to live it. I want to be the best example of that, you know? And I just think about how many days I felt empty because I was one of those teachers being the first one to show up to work and the last one to leave. And everybody's like, oh, that's cool. You know, we idolize this whole workaholic mentality, but it doesn't really get you anywhere. You get what I'm saying? But empty.
Yeah.
And so I want my work to last. You know, I'm not doing this just to teach math or just to teach whatever. I want this to be to transform lives. And so I think that one of the things that I try to hold on to is, Elesha, every day is a new day. When at the end of our affirmations we say today will be the best day of my life. If I ask my kids to say it, then I'm gonna have to live up to it so we can all mean it.
Yeah.
And so every day I come in, it's a new day. I'm not talking about what you did yesterday. And it's so interesting because in my real life, that may be a hard thing for me because I'm like, well, yesterday you know, but in my classroom, because I know that the weight of, you know, how things will function falls on me, I have to show up every day. I smile every day. I'm honest because I ask them to be honest with me. One of the things I will say too is sometimes we don't teach people how to handle conflict with us.
Yeah.
So that's part of the problem. So I would be kind of in a work environment, I would be a little bit more passive, you know, whereas in, you know, my friendships, I'd be like, well, I just bring it up, you know?
Right.
But that was hard for me because that's not me, but I feel like I had to do that to be professional.
Right.
But what I learned is I had to kind of take the approach that I do with my students. At the first day of class, you know, the first day is the best day. I tell my students how to handle conflict. I say, y'all, if I ever offend you, you just have to say, Miss Coons, or, you know, at the time it was Miss Coons, can we talk outside? Mm-hmm. And the first thing I asked them is, you know, what went on in there? How did that make you feel?
Right.
You know
giving them a voice.
Right. And me doing that allows for me to step inside of them because they would have made me mad, but I can respond with them in mind.
Right.
Versus my expectations or whatever in mind. So I just think it's so important that we go on and say, how do we handle conflict? If you don't teach us how to do it, everybody's walking on eggshells and nobody knows how to work it out. So
and I'm glad you said that.
Active.
And I'm glad you said that. We're gonna have to do a part 2 to this because right now we're just talking about educators in the classroom and their role as faith believers, but we're going to have to come back and have a whole other conversation with how do we handle students with a Christian mindset and a Christian demeanor. Because so here's my next question: how do you deal with colleagues who claim to be Christians, but you see them behave in unchristian-like ways, especially with students? How do you deal with that? And let me ask you, let me tell you why I say that, because we're going to have a whole other conversation in this platform talking about cultural sensitivity and inclusive instruction. And so we have many teachers that are teachers of faith, but have no clue they're treating their students in an uninviting, unculturally inviting way.
Okay, here's what I will say. Oh my gosh. Okay, 4 minutes.
No, go, take your time.
The best way I can put this is, it hit me today. Forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespassed against us. Okay? That scripture hit me because what I realize is, you know, I'm thankful to the Lord that he forgives me. But as soon as I have to reciprocate that forgiveness to someone else, you know what I'm saying? I may not be as graceful as I am towards myself.
Right.
And so, but what I realized is, in that prayer, we all say it loosely, but there's an expectation that God is forgiving us and we praise him for that. But also, he has an expectation on us to forgive others the way he's forgiven us.
Most definitely.
And we are asking him to forgive us the way we forgive others. So we got to really check that. So what I would say is, in that same regard, I think that the best way that I've learned to handle things is to, like I said, model the way. So if I see something that I do not like, oftentimes I will talk to that individual first.
Right.
I think sometimes in our culture, we talk to everybody else before we talk to the individual. And I think that's because we don't necessarily know how to communicate, like I said, about conflict. You know, if we did, I feel like we wouldn't create a whole bunch of rumors before we finally all had to get to the table, you know? But I think that first I try to talk to that individual. I also try to talk to the student. But when I'm talking to the student, I'm not necessarily saying, well, what did that teacher say that made you mad? Because I see a lot of teachers do that too. Like, you know, like, well, I wouldn't have done that to you. Like, no. We are not trying to cause confusion to the point where the student has to pick a side between teachers.
Right.
I want to know, how did you feel? And what is a way that this could have been handled better? And then oftentimes I go back to that teacher and I say, well, this is how that student felt. I'm sure you didn't mean that, because a lot of times people don't mean it. They just don't have a way to, they don't have the tools. Like they basically come to the table with prejudices or, ideas about people before they interact with them. And that's a lot of times why they interact the way they do. Because when you love somebody and you understand somebody, and you know somebody, you don't treat them that way. Sometimes it's based on a stereotype. So a lot of times my goal is to try to remind them that that's a person. Yeah, they're a student. Yeah, they're, whatever. But that's a person that you were talking to. And I know you as a person. I talk to them as a person. Because a lot of times those same people who did that, they're not horrible people. They just got stuff going on just like the next person.
Right.
And we have to remember, a lot of us got a kid on the inside of us. And sometimes working with kids, it can pull your kid out too. That's why you need So I say, oftentimes I try to understand. That's my first place. Let me understand first before I try to be understood. And then I try to bridge the gap. Like, where's the gap right here? Okay, we can all get on the same page now. So that's how I would say we should do. But when I was talking about that grace earlier, I feel like we also have to remember, a lot of teachers want a certain level of grace. They don't like when stereotypes are placed on them by administration, right? Right. But sometimes they don't want them talking about their yesterday or their bad school. But you have to do the same thing for your kids. Forgive us our trespasses, and we forgive those who trespass against us. You don't want your administrators treating you a certain way, so treat your kids, a certain way. And a lot of times the way you treat people will match up to that.
And we're going to have more conversations on Teacher Talks about accountability among professionals, because research shows some of the most successful schools have this high level of accountability from teacher to teacher, not just teacher to leader or school to district level. It's part of the culture of the building that they hold each other accountable. And I think as Christians, there is a certain way to hold somebody else accountable without minimizing who they are or devaluing them, but saying, I know it's in you, and I know what I probably saw wasn't who you really are. I caught you at a bad moment, and I understand the situation that you were dealing with. The kid was very frustrated or very defiant or very aggressive or abusive towards you. So I want to support you, but remember what we said that we're going to do as a team, as a unit. That's not who we are.
And remember, any of us could be that person.
Anybody could be that person.
I could have a bad day and be completely out of character. I would hope that somebody would remind me who I am.
Most definitely.
And so I just think that that's important too, because I think sometimes teacher can be like, I'm the advocate teacher. Well, not today, honey, because evidently you had a bad day at home, So, sometimes we have to remember that just like that person falls short, they may fall short 47 times more than you, but you're falling short somewhere, and you want somebody to show you grace and treat you like a person.
Yeah.
So and if you're trying to teach them how to talk to the student in a professional fashion, as a human, then you have to show them that same respect.
Yeah.
This last example, like my husband, when we first got married, he would tell me, he was like, Elesha, we would be like, let's say, disagreeing. And he would be like, you know what? We're not at war with each other, so I'm putting my weapon down. You know what I'm saying? And the fact that he said, like, put his weapon down, I'm like, okay, let me put my weapon down.
Yeah, because it disarms you too.
It's right. And so I think that's the best example for this. A lot of times we feel like they've got our weapons. Let me get my AK-47. But a lot of times it's just a matter of, saying, I'm putting my weapon down. Can you join me? And let's talk.
Yeah.
We're on the same team. We're not at war against each other.
Yeah. Oh man, Dr. Tanya came in. She said, "Seek first to understand, and then bridge the gap. Seek to understand, then be understood, and
Mm-hmm.
bridge that gap." And I think that's a lot of that is really just putting yourself second and putting the situation, that person first. So that way you're not getting caught up in your emotions or wrapped up in the moment and really trying to understand what's really happening. Um, so seek first to understand, be understood, and then bridge the gap. I
And
think
I
that's
would
a powerful
just
message.
that, like, seek first God's interpretation of the issue. You get what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Because that helps me a lot. God's interpretation of the issue, it helps me to see those people as people, their interpretation, and then my interpretation. You get what I'm saying? Because it's still important for you to
Hmm.
have your own. But I think sometimes when we look at it from how God sees this situation, not in a condemning way,
Hmm.
but in a loving way,
Yeah.
it can kind of help us see people better. Because
And
I
you
just
know,
of how God sees me.
and that's important because all and what we're saying is this: in the moment, sometimes if you seek first God, sometimes it will allow you to just step back.
Mm-hmm.
It will and take the moment, take a breath, and listen first. Listen to God. What is He saying to you? And many times we don't do that. We jump right in as who we are, and you have to fall back. Anybody who's a teacher understands this work happens fast and it happens unexpectedly. And if you don't seek first the kingdom, you will find yourself as an earthly vessel, doing thinking in an earthly mindset. So
Mm-hmm.
you've got to fall back and take on that mindset. Let me listen first to his heart and his voice and what he's already called me to do and the way he wants me to respond. God, I can't wait. So there's another thing I'm going to be doing called Teacher Tales. I want to be talking about all the mistakes I've made as a teacher that nobody should ever do because you probably lose your job.
I'm
But
trying to.
I think they're important to say because I was out of character. I was out of line and I was not connected to him. I was connected to me because I was in the moment.
But you know what, Mr. Holmes? I want to make sure that we make the point that it's so easy to make this work personal. You know,
Yes.
when you take ownership of something, you take it personal.
Yeah.
And so it's nothing wrong with that, but you need to acknowledge that, okay,
Hmm.
I'm taking this personal at this point. Because I did
Hmm.
that just a couple months ago. I got so frustrated. I'm like, why is it so personal? You get what I'm saying? It's because sometimes when you invest so much, everything is personal.
Hmm.
But like you said, it's when we focus on, seeking God first, but also, seeking His heart and all this stuff like that, it just helps us to reframe it,
Hmm.
refocus. Because when
Hmm.
we do that, we focus on the spiritual things,
Hmm.
not necessarily what we see.
Hmm. But the other thing too is I think we have to understand when we take it so personal, we forget who has called us to do the work,
And who we do
and
the
that's
work
if
for.
and that's if you were called to do this work. Some of us are Christians and
Yeah.
we weren't called to do this work. We were called to do something else, but we fell into this because of happenstance or comfortable situations or connections. And so you find yourself always out of character because this was not your true calling.
And
Well,
being
I
able
think for
to
those
admit,
of us who were called to teach, we understand that this is a mission. And so we have to always be leaning on the source that
mhm.
has brought us here because it wasn't us that brought us here. Like you said, this is what you wanted to do. You want to be an engineer. I thought I was going to be a doctor.
Mhm.
Somehow here we are, but we are here because we are obedient to the call.
Mhm. And the fact that everything that you said was powerful, but the fact that you got to go where God's grace is for you. You know what I'm saying? If you're out of character every day, pursue something different, and He'll make room for you wherever you're going. Sometimes we can outstay our welcome. I think
Yeah,
that's awesome. But also the final point about that is the scripture: "Do the work as unto the Lord."
yeah.
I remember when I had to drop out of school for a semester, and I had never done anything like that before. But I was cleaning bathrooms, and I was like, "Granddaddy, I didn't sign up for this now." You know what I'm saying? I was supposed to be doing something different. But they knew that I was going to do well or whatever, so they would sign me up for everything in the store, including the bathrooms. And so my granddaddy said, "Do the work as unto the Lord."
Yeah.
I was like, what in the world? I guess
That's not
sometimes
what you wanted to hear.
it don't right. It don't stick. You know what I'm saying? I get what you're saying. It's just like Jesus is your friend. Okay. But all that stuff is real. It's a real thing. And so I
It
would
is.
then not be scrubbing. But the thing is, that taught me something. Because even now, when I'm doing my job, or I'm, even in the profession, sometimes it's a thankless job.
Yeah.
Not all the time, but sometimes it is.
Yeah.
If you're doing it unto the Lord, you never get tired, and you're not
Mhm.
worried if you don't get a sticker or not.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? So I feel like it helps you to stand.
And you know what? I'm glad you said that too, because when you do this work and you do it for God, that spirit of fear never comes over you. And they can give you the toughest classroom, the toughest kids, or the toughest curriculum, and people wonder why you never sweat. I can't sweat because one, I was called to do this, and He has not given me the spirit of fear, but that of a calm mind. That I can do that. He's given me the tools, and if I don't feel like I have it, I know He's going to give it to me. So I'm confident in Him first. Therefore, I'm confident in my abilities to do what He's called me to do.
Yes. And when you've been assigned somewhere, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's
Woo!
totally different. It's
Did
totally
you say
different. I know.
assigned?
Yes. You know, and even just I feel like that fear can come in when you feel like you can't perform. But I know when I feel
Yeah.
like God has purposed me to do something, there's no fear in this world that can hold me back. I had never taught high school. I taught in the middle of the year with a class that was outrageous.
Yeah.
But when I stepped in there, God had given me everything that I need. And I was fearful, but fear didn't consume me. His presence, his purpose consumed me and drowned
Yeah.
out all of those fears. So I just feel like, we have to stay prayed up and we have to stay in our word. I think that's another thing. We be doing all these lessons that they're good, but we have to take time with God so that we don't run dry. That would be my biggest encouragement. Don't make time for God, regardless. If you are headed to work, take that last 10 minutes to read your Bible. You need something to stand on, or we're gonna drown.
Yeah. All right, last question. You take this. This is gonna be our last question. We're gonna have to pick up again. So get ready for part 2, people. If you're on YouTube, like, comment, subscribe. Come back. We do this every Thursday. Alicia's here with me tonight. I'm so excited she's here. She's gonna come back, so I'll let you know when she's coming back. So we're gonna do part 2 of the crossroads between Christianity and the classroom. So get ready. I'll let you know when it's coming. But like, comment, subscribe, share this, share this, share this. These are real conversations. And so all we're doing here is building a community across this country and across the world of educators and people who believe are vested in education. That's all we're doing. So we're going to end tonight with the last question. Kind of 2-part. But have you ever thought about giving up?
Yes. I am actually writing about this now. Not giving up in education. I can write a series. But I'm not a giver upper. But I did get empty. That's what I'll say. I've never given up on education, but it's beat me up. And I have felt empty. But because that spark of purpose was in me, I did want to give up one day. And I just can't do this anymore. But God was like, I'm not done with you. You get what I'm saying? Get up, But I had to learn how to do some self-care and stuff like that. I had to learn how to seek him, like I said. But the biggest example I can give you is this. Here's how I was doing when, at first I was swimming just fine in education. It was I've had a successful journey in education. Thank the Lord. I was swimming. And then my arms got tired, because if you swimming in the ocean, it's tiring. So when my arms got tired, I started fighting the waves. You know how like the people who don't know how to swim, they just like fight against the waters, And God had gave me this kind of like vision the other day about like what happens when you relax. Like it used to bother me when I would see people swimming and I would see people floating. I could never float, because I want to basically, be active. But what I've learned is in my moments where I wanted to give up, you told me this, Mr. Holmes, the other day, but basically like, what now? What next? And literally, I always ask God, like, what about right now? Right now, you want me to get up and do whatever. And you want me to trust you. And you want me to hang on to the words that you placed in my heart. Some of that is, I am enough. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And relax. That's one thing that we don't ever talk about in education. You always got to be doing something. But literally, I've learned to relax when he tells me to relax. I think that that's what kind of kept me going. And also being around people who are encouraging and not, just negative and messy and not optimistic. I know that I'm called to this work, so I have to be around people who are going to encourage that work in me.
Yeah. God, this has been a great 43 minutes. I wish we could go on for another 2 hours, but I'm going to keep people in suspense and make them come back for another teacher talk session with you.
Mr. Holmes, I want to say this too. Be with people who can, who can remind you of your name and who can call you out of darkness.
Yeah.
Because some people will comfort you in that darkness and you'll be there for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
But sometimes you need people to be like, this is what you are assigned to. We're going to get you where you need to be, but get up. Like you need a circle of balance. So I just want to make sure I say that too. Have people in your life who can shine light on where you are. And not only shine light, but help pull you out of that darkness with the word of the Lord.
And let me say this. For those of you who feel like you are in that pool of water and you feel like you're drowning, I want to encourage you to know that you can stop trying to swim. All God is asking you to do is float. And you can float if you do two things. First, trust him. And number two, trust yourself. Because I promise you, the power and the force of God is so strong that the force that's trying to pull you down can't win, because the power of God is so strong, it will forever hold and lift you up. There's no force, there's no power that is more powerful than the power of God. And when God has called you to do whatever it is that you're doing, he will lift you up. He will sustain you, and he will keep you. And not just keep you, but he will forever keep you in perfect peace. Because you can't be effective if you're destroyed and broken. You can't help anybody if you're drowning. So stop trying to swim. All God has called you to do is float. Because there's somebody out there who just wants to see you float. Because they're fighting the same waters you're fighting. Now, if they stop seeing you fight and see you float, then they'll start seeing whatever that force is that's keeping you up. And we know that force is the power of God.
And when you keep your eyes up, you're not worried about what's around you. And
that's
God
it.
Had this vision where it was like a floaty, like it's like being surrounded. He's like surrounded. Just remember, you are surrounded. I don't care what's going on around. You're surrounded. Keep looking up.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you guys so much for joining in tonight. If you are watching this on YouTube, when this is over, you make sure you share this with all of your friends and your family. They don't have to be teachers or principals or leaders in education. Anybody connected to school systems, school districts across this country, they need to watch this, especially if they are people of faith or anybody that's feeling discouraged. This is a wonderful time to sit and reflect on what you were called to do and what we can do if we tap into that higher power. And that higher power is up for you.
For a spiritual purpose.
That's it.
Spiritual gift. And so we're trying to produce spiritual fruit for a spiritual purpose.
That's it. Wow. Guys, thank you so much for watching. I will be back next week with Teacher Talks 9 o'clock. Every Thursday, I'm right here. I'll try to be right here. If I'm not, I'll let you know. But right here, I'm so excited. I'm excited about this platform. I'm excited what it's already doing. The encouraging words I've received from just being present and watching this. And Elesha, thank you so much for coming on. I've known this young lady for a long time. Yes. You guys, let me tell you, get ready and watch out. You're going to hear the name Elesha Scott very, very soon, because God is pushing her to the forefront. And she may not be ready, but there's a wind pushing her forward and she can't stop it. And so thank you again for coming on. I'll let you guys know when she's coming back. She's coming back.
Mr. Holmes. I love you. I love you. I really
Thank
do.
you so much. I love you so much, guys. This is like my baby girl right here, and I had to have her on. When I thought about this topic, I couldn't think of anybody else to have on
Mm.
but her. So thank you so much. We'll be back next week, and like I always say, if I don't see you again soon, until I do see you and speak to you, be blessed. Teacher Talk, fully engaged. We're out. Thank you so much.
Bye.